5-year-old Youngjin stood in the massive kitchen, still wearing her pink pajamas at 2 p.m. Her tiny hands gripped the marble countertop as she stared up at Josephine Carter, the new black live-in maid who had just started her first day 3 hours ago. Josephine was on her knees, scrubbing a stubborn grape juice stain from the imported Italian tile floor. Her back ached. Her knees throbbed. Her dignity had packed its bags and left somewhere around hour 2 when she realized the kitchen alone was bigger than her entire former apartment. The eviction notice was still folded in her back pocket. 72 hours to vacate. That had been 4 days ago. She had spent 2 nights in her car before finding this job listing on a domestic staffing website. Live-in housekeeper needed immediately. Atherton Estate. $4,500 monthly plus room and board. Must be comfortable with children. Background check required. Start date, ASAP. Josephine had applied at 11 p.m. By 8 a.m. the next morning, she was sitting in a cold office being interviewed by the coldest man she had ever met. By noon, she had moved her 2 suitcases into a bedroom that had its own bathroom, walk-in closet, and a view of a garden that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Now here she was, scrubbing floors in a $47 million mansion in the wealthiest zip code in America. Life was funny like that, funny in the way that made you want to cry. Youngjin continued staring at her. The child had been watching her for the past 15 minutes without saying a word, just watching with those big dark eyes that seemed too serious for such a small face. "You missed a spot," Youngjin finally said. She pointed at a faint purple streak near the edge of the island. "Maria always got all the spots. She said the floors had to be perfect or Daddy would be upset." Josephine shifted on her aching knees and attacked the missed spot. "Who's Maria?" "The maid before you. She cried a lot, then she left." Youngjin said this like she was describing the weather, matter of fact, no emotion. "Why did she cry?" "Because Daddy is sad. And when Daddy is sad, everyone is sad. That's just how it works in this house." Josephine looked up at the child. Youngjin had climbed onto one of the counter stools and was swinging her legs back and forth. Her pink pajamas had little cartoon cats all over them. Her dark hair was tangled like no one had brushed it in days. There was a small stain on her sleeve that looked like dried syrup. This child was not being cared for properly. Not neglected exactly, but overlooked, like she had become invisible in her own home. "Sweetie, did you have breakfast this morning?" Youngjin shrugged. "I had some crackers, the ones with the fish shapes, and some juice, but I spilled the juice. That's the stain you're cleaning." "Just crackers." "Daddy forgot to go shopping. He forgets a lot of things now." Youngjin tilted her head and studied Josephine with an intensity that was unsettling in someone so young. "You have pretty hair. It's all curly and big. Maria had straight hair. Straight hair is boring." Josephine touched her natural curls self-consciously. "Thank you. Your hair is pretty too. Do you want me to brush it for you later?" "Yes, please. Daddy used to brush my hair. He was really good at it. He would make braids and put ribbons in them." Youngjin's voice got quieter. "He doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't do anything anymore." The sadness in this child's voice made Josephine's chest tight. She abandoned the juice stain and stood up, her knees cracking in protest. "Youngjin, where is your mommy? Maybe she could help with your hair." The little girl's face changed. Something dark flickered behind her eyes, something that looked too much like fear. "Mommy is gone. Mommy broke Daddy and then she left. She's not coming back. Daddy says she's not allowed back, ever." Josephine moved closer to the child. She crouched down so they were eye level. "What do you mean she broke him?" Youngjin reached out and touched Josephine's face. Her small fingers traced along Josephine's cheek like she was checking if she was real. "You have kind eyes. Maria had kind eyes too, but they got scared. Your eyes aren't scared yet. That's good. Maybe you'll stay." "Ginny, what did your mommy do?" "I can't tell you. Daddy said I should never talk about it. It's a secret. A really bad secret." Youngjin dropped her hand and straightened up on the stool. Her expression became very serious, very adult. "But I can tell you what you need to do. You need to marry my daddy." Josephine laughed. The sound burst out of her before she could stop it. A real genuine laugh that echoed through the massive, empty kitchen and bounced off the cathedral ceilings. "Sweetheart, I just met your daddy 4 hours ago when he hired me. I don't even know his last name." "It's Kang Woo-jin. He's very rich and very sad. Mommy broke him before she left. You have to fix him." Josephine's laugh died in her throat. She stared at this 5-year-old girl sitting in her wrinkled pajamas with her tangled hair and her too serious eyes. This child who had just eaten crackers for breakfast because her father forgot to buy food. This child who was watching her parent fall apart and had decided the solution was to find him a new wife. "Honey, that's not how it works. I'm your maid. Your daddy is my boss. People don't just marry their maids." "Why not?" "Because we're from different worlds. Your daddy is very rich and very important. I'm just me." Youngjin shook her head firmly. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you have kind eyes and you're not scared and you laughed. Nobody laughs in this house anymore. Daddy needs someone who laughs." Before Josephine could respond, a door slammed somewhere deep in the mansion. The sound was so loud and sudden that Josephine jumped. Youngjin did not jump. She went very still instead. Heavy footsteps approached, slow and deliberate, getting closer. Youngjin slid off the stool and moved behind Josephine. She pressed herself against Josephine's legs and gripped the fabric of her uniform. "He's coming," Youngjin whispered. "Don't look sad. He doesn't like when people look sad for him. It makes him angry." Kang Woo-jin appeared in the doorway. He was tall, broad shoulders, sharp Korean features that belonged on magazine covers or in those Korean dramas Josephine's college roommate used to watch obsessively. His hair was black and slightly messy. His skin was pale, too pale. But it was his eyes that made Josephine's stomach drop. They were empty, hollow, like someone had scooped out everything that made a person human and left only the shell behind. His expensive navy suit hung loose on his frame. This was a man who had recently lost weight, a lot of weight. The kind of weight loss that came from not eating, from not sleeping, from grief or stress or something darker. He looked at Josephine with zero expression. No warmth, no hostility, nothing at all. "Miss Carter, you're still here, good." "Yes, Mr. Kang. I was just cleaning the kitchen as requested." "My daughter needs dinner at 6. There's a schedule on the refrigerator. Follow it exactly. I have business tonight. I will be in my office. Do not disturb me." He turned to leave. He hadn't looked at Youngjin. Not once. His own daughter was standing right there and he acted like she was invisible. "Daddy." Youngjin's small voice stopped him. He paused in the doorway but didn't turn around. "Yes." "Will you eat dinner with us, please?" Silence. Josephine watched Woo-jin's shoulders tense beneath his suit. She watched his hands curl into fists at his sides. She watched him fight some kind of internal battle that played out in the rigid line of his spine. "Not tonight." He walked away. His footsteps echoed down the hallway until a distant door closed. Youngjin's grip on Josephine's uniform loosened. The hope drained from her face. "See," the little girl's voice was barely a whisper. "He's broken. Mommy took something from him, something he can never get back. That's why you need to marry him, Josie. You have to fix him before it's too late." Josephine stared at the empty doorway. Her heart was pounding. What had happened in this house? What had Helena done that was so terrible it had turned this man into a ghost and left his daughter playing the role of parent? Josephine didn't know. But standing in that enormous kitchen with this lonely little girl pressing against her legs, she made a silent decision. She wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. Not until she understood what was happening behind the walls of this beautiful broken house. Now here's my question for you. What do you think Helena did to Woo-jin that broke him so completely? Drop your theories in the comments because trust me, you're not going to guess this one. If you're invested in finding out what happens to Josephine and this broken mafia boss, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and like this video. Because what comes next? It's going to change everything. The first week at the Atherton mansion taught Josephine one important truth. Nothing about this job was normal. Nothing about this house was normal. And nothing about Kang Woo-jin was anywhere close to normal. The mansion had 23 rooms. Josephine had counted them twice just to make sure. 23 rooms filled with expensive furniture, priceless artwork, and enough space to house a small village. But Woo-jin only used 3 of them. His bedroom on the 2nd floor, his office on the 1st floor, which was always locked, and the kitchen where he poured whiskey at 3 a.m. when he thought no one was watching. Josephine watched because she slept lightly, because the sounds in this house kept her awake at night, because Woo-jin paced the halls like a ghost haunting his own home, and his footsteps echoed through the empty corridors until dawn. She would lie in her comfortable bed in her comfortable room and listen to him walk, back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes she heard him stop outside Young Jin's door. He would stand there for minutes at a time, not entering, just standing. Then his footsteps would retreat back down the hallway to his own room. This man was torturing himself with something. Josephine just didn't know what. Young Jin was the other mystery. The little girl did not act like other 5-year-olds. She was too quiet, too watchful. She observed everything with those dark, serious eyes that seemed to miss nothing. On the 4th day, Young Jin invited Josephine into her bedroom to show her something special. The child's room was enormous and filled with toys that looked barely touched. Stuffed animals lined shelves in perfect rows. A dollhouse the size of a refrigerator sat in one corner, its tiny furniture arranged with surgical precision. This was not a room where a child played. This was a showroom. Young Jin climbed onto her bed and lifted the corner of her mattress. "Don't tell Daddy," she whispered. "This is my secret." She pulled out a photograph and handed it to Josephine. The image showed a family from 2 years ago. Woo-jin was smiling, actually smiling. His face was fuller, his eyes were bright, and his arm was wrapped around a stunning woman with red hair and green eyes. Between them stood a toddler version of Young Jin, laughing at the camera. Josephine stared at the woman. She was beautiful in that polished, expensive way that came from money and privilege. Her smile was perfect. Her posture was perfect. Everything about her screamed perfection. "That's Mommy," Young Jin said. "She was very pretty. Everyone said so. Daddy used to look at her like she was magic." "Do you miss her?" Young Jin took the photo back and studied it. Mommy was pretend nice. She would smile and say sweet things, but her eyes were cold. Real nice is different. Real nice is when you mean it. She looked up at Josephine. "You're real nice. I can tell because your eyes match your smile." "Sweetie, what happened with your mommy? Why did she leave?" Young Jin's face went blank. The same blank expression her father wore like armor. "I can't talk about that. Daddy says I should never talk about that." She slid the photo back under her mattress and changed the subject to her collection of hair ribbons. The conversation was over. 3 days later, Josephine accidentally saw something she was not supposed to see. She was cleaning the hallway outside Woo-jin's office, running a dust cloth along the antique table that held a vase worth more than her car. The office door was closed as always. It was always closed. It was always locked. Then the door opened. Josephine stepped back instinctively as 3 Korean men in expensive suits exited the office. They were speaking rapidly in Korean, their voices low and serious. Their body language told a story that needed no translation. These men were deferential, respectful, and terrified. One of them noticed Josephine standing there with her dust cloth. He stopped mid-sentence and said something sharp to Woo-jin, who had appeared in the doorway behind them. Woo-jin's response was in English. His voice was cold enough to freeze water. "She's the help. She's irrelevant." The words hit Josephine like a slap. She kept her face neutral as the men walked past her toward the front door. Woo-jin's eyes met hers for one brief moment. There was no apology in them, no embarrassment, just that same hollow emptiness he always carried. He closed the office door without another word. That night, Josephine lay in bed with her phone, searching for information about her employer. She typed his name into Google and hit enter. Nothing. She tried different combinations. Kang Woojin businessman, Kang Woojin Atherton, Kang Woojin California. Nothing. For a man who lived in a $47 million mansion and had men in suits visiting at all hours, Kang Woojin had absolutely zero internet presence. No social media, no news articles, no business listings, no photographs. He had been scrubbed, completely and professionally erased from the digital world. Josephine knew what that meant. Only people with serious power and serious secrets went to those lengths. Only people who had something significant to hide. She should leave. Every rational thought in her head screamed at her to pack her bags and disappear. This was not a normal job. This was not a normal family. Something dark was happening in this house, and she was standing directly in the middle of it. But then she thought about young Jin. That lonely little girl in her perfect, untouched room with her hidden photograph and her two old eyes. That child who watched her father like she was memorizing him in case he disappeared. Josephine couldn't leave her. Not yet. Not until she understood what was happening. The understanding came 3 days later. Josephine woke to screaming. The sound ripped through the silent mansion like a knife, high-pitched and terrified and utterly heartbreaking. She was out of bed and running before her brain fully processed what was happening. The screams were coming from young Jin's room at the end of the hallway. Josephine's bare feet slapped against the cold marble floors as she ran. She reached the door just as Woo Jin did. He came from the opposite direction, his hair wild, his shirt untucked, his feet bare like hers. For one moment they stood together outside the door, united in their panic. Then Woo Jin pushed inside. Josephine stayed in the doorway and watched. Young Jin was sitting up in her bed, tangled in her sheets, her face wet with tears. She was still screaming, but the sound had turned into words now. Don't take me, daddy, please." Woo Jin crossed the room in 3 strides. He gathered his daughter into his arms and pulled her against his chest. His hand cradled the back of her head. His body curled around hers like a shield. "Appa is here," he whispered in Korean, then switched to English. "Daddy's here, baby. I'm right here. Nobody is taking you. Nobody will ever take you again. I promise. I promise. Never again. Never again. Never again." The words echoed in the dark room. Josephine felt her blood turn to ice. Someone had taken young Jin before. Someone had tried to steal this child from her father. And Woo Jin was making promises in the dark, holding his daughter like she might dissolve if he let go. Josephine watched as Woo Jin rocked young Jin slowly, whispering words of comfort. The cold, distant man she had come to know was gone. In his place was a father destroyed by love and fear, and something that looked like guilt. Tears slipped down his face. He didn't try to hide them. He didn't seem to care that Josephine was watching. In that moment, he wasn't Kang Woo Jin, the mysterious, wealthy man with the locked office and the scrubbed internet presence. He was just a father terrified of losing his child. Young Jin's sobs gradually quieted. Her grip on her father's shirt loosened. Her breathing evened out as exhaustion pulled her back towards sleep. Woo Jin looked up and met Josephine's eyes across the room. For one long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he looked away and focused on his daughter. "You can go back to bed, Miss Carter. I'll stay with her." Josephine wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, but the raw vulnerability on his face stopped her. This was not the time. "Yes, Mr. Kang." She returned to her room, but she didn't sleep. She lay awake until dawn, listening to the silence of the house, thinking about little girls who had nightmares about being taken and fathers who cried in the dark. The next morning, Woo Jin called Josephine into the dining room. He was wearing his armor again, the expensive suit, the cold expression, the empty eyes. It was as if last night had never happened. "I need to discuss your employment terms," he said. "Sit down." Josephine sat across from him at the massive dining table. 12 chairs lined its length, but only 2 were ever used. The waste of it made her quietly angry. "Your role is expanding." Josephine waited for him to continue. "Young Jin has developed an attachment to you. Since her mother left, she has had difficulty connecting with the staff. You're the first person she's responded to positively in months." He paused. "She's asked for you specifically to accompany her everywhere. School pickup, appointments, outings. You would essentially become her full-time companion rather than a housekeeper." "That's significantly more than cleaning floors, Mr. Kang." "Your salary will reflect the change. Triple your current rate, plus room and board, plus a car for transportation." Josephine's head spun. Triple the money. That was $13,500 a month. That was paying off her student debt in 2 years instead of 10. That was financial freedom she had never dared to imagine. But the questions burning in her mind couldn't stay silent anymore. "Mr. Kang, I need to understand what I'm walking into. Your daughter said her mother broke you. There are men in expensive suits visiting at odd hours. You pace the halls every night. Last night, young Jin had a nightmare about someone taking her." Josephine leaned forward. "If I'm going to be responsible for your daughter's safety, I need to know what I'm protecting her from." Woo Jin's expression flickered. For just 1 second, the mask slipped. Josephine saw raw anguish beneath his cold surface, pain that looked like it might swallow him whole. Then the mask was back. "My ex-wife is not in the picture. That's all you need to know." "But the nightmare." "That's all you need to know, Miss Carter." His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Do you accept the terms or not?" Every instinct in Josephine's body screamed at her to run, to take her 2 suitcases and walk out the door and never look back. This was dangerous. This was complicated. This was so far above her pay grade that she couldn't even see the ceiling. But she thought about young Jin, that lonely little girl who called her real nice, that child who hid photographs under her mattress and had nightmares about being stolen. "I accept," Josephine said. She told herself it was for the money. She told herself it was a business decision. She told herself she was being practical. She was lying. She knew she was lying, but she said yes anyway. 2 weeks later, Josephine had settled into a routine that felt almost normal. Almost. Every morning she woke at 6. She showered in her private bathroom that still felt like a luxury hotel. She dressed in the casual professional clothes that Woo Jin had provided along with her new role. Then she went downstairs to prepare young Jin for school. The BMW was black and sleek and made Josephine nervous every time she drove it. It cost more than she would earn in years, even at her new salary. But young Jin loved sitting in the backseat and pretending they were secret agents on a mission. School was a private elementary in Palo Alto. The kind of school where tuition cost more than most people's mortgages. Young Jin wore a uniform of navy blue and white, and her classmates were the children of tech billionaires and venture capitalists. Josephine waited in the pickup line every afternoon, surrounded by luxury SUVs driven by nannies and au pairs. She was usually the only black face in the crowd. She pretended not to notice the stares. Young Jin slowly began to open up during their drives. She talked about her favorite colors, which were purple and gold because they were the colors of royalty. She talked about her favorite food, which was her grandmother's kimchi jjigae that she hadn't tasted in over a year because her grandmother lived in Seoul and Daddy didn't let them travel anymore. She talked about her biggest fear. Mommy coming back. Josephine glanced in the rearview mirror. Young Jin was staring out the window, her face troubled. Don't you miss your mommy, Ginny? Young Jin's face went blank. That same blank expression that chilled Josephine every time she saw it. Mommy doesn't love Daddy. Mommy doesn't love me. Mommy only loves Mommy's plans. That's what Uncle Minjun said before he went to heaven. Josephine's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Uncle Minjun. This was the first time young Jin had mentioned anyone else in the family. Who is Uncle Minjun? Daddy's brother. He was funny and nice, and he gave me piggyback rides. Young Jin's voice got very quiet. He went to heaven 6 weeks ago. That's when Daddy broke. 6 weeks ago. That matched the timeline of Woo Jin's deterioration. Something had happened 6 weeks ago that shattered this family completely. Before Josephine could ask more questions, young Jin changed the subject to a story about her friend Hannah's new puppy. The conversation was over. The encounter happened on a Thursday afternoon. Josephine was parked in her usual spot in the school pickup line, watching parents and nannies gather near the entrance. The afternoon sun was warm through the BMW's windows. Everything felt peaceful and ordinary. Then a white Range Rover pulled up beside her. A woman stepped out. She was stunning, red hair cascading over her shoulders in perfect waves, green eyes that caught the light, designer clothes that probably cost more than Josephine's yearly salary, flawless makeup that enhanced already beautiful features. Josephine recognized her immediately from the hidden photograph. Helena King. Helena walked toward the school entrance with the confidence of someone who owned the world. But halfway there, a security guard intercepted her. He spoke quietly but firmly, his body positioned to block her path. Helena's face contorted with rage for just a moment. Then she composed herself, smiled sweetly, and backed away with her hands raised in mock surrender. She had been banned from the school. Helena turned and scanned the pickup area. Her eyes moved from car to car until they landed on Josephine's BMW. Recognition flickered across her face. Then a smile spread slowly across her lips. It was the coldest smile Josephine had ever seen. Helena walked over and tapped on Josephine's window with one perfectly manicured fingernail. Every instinct told Josephine to keep the window up, to ignore this woman, to drive away. Instead, she lowered the window. "You must be the new help," Helena said. Her voice was sweet like honey poured over broken glass. "How lovely. I hope Wu Jin is paying you well to babysit what's mine." "I'm sorry, who are you?" Helena laughed. The sound was musical and completely empty. "Playing games? How cute. Tell my husband I'll be seeing him soon. We have unfinished business regarding our daughter." "Your ex-husband," Josephine corrected before she could stop herself. Helena's smile sharpened into something dangerous. "Sweetie, there's nothing X about what Wu Jin and I have. We're bound together in ways you couldn't possibly understand. Blood and business and debts that can never be repaid." She tilted her head, studying Josephine like a cat studying a mouse. "You're pretty. For the help. I wonder how long you'll last before you run screaming like all the others." "I don't scare easily." "No," Helena leaned closer to the window. "You should. This isn't a game for people like you. You're swimming in water so deep you can't even see the bottom. When you drown, and you will drown, don't say I didn't warn you." She straightened up and smoothed her designer dress. "Tell Wu Jin I said hello. Tell him I'm coming for what's mine. Tell him the debt is almost due." She returned to her Range Rover and drove away without looking back. Josephine sat frozen in her seat, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her hands were shaking. The passenger door opened, and young Jin climbed in, tossing her backpack onto the floor. She took one look at Josephine's face and went very still. "You saw Mommy, didn't you?" There was no point in lying. "Yes." Young Jin's small hands gripped the straps of her school uniform. Her face was pale. "Did she say she's coming back for me?" "She mentioned unfinished business." The 5-year-old nodded solemnly. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just accepted this terrible information with a resignation that no child should ever have to learn. "Then it's starting again. You need to tell Daddy. He needs to know she's here." Josephine drove home faster than she should have. Her mind was racing with questions that had no answers. What did Helena mean by debts? What unfinished business? Why would a mother be banned from her own child's school? She reported the encounter to Wu Jin that evening. His reaction terrified her. All color drained from his face when she described Helena. His hands began to shake. He grabbed his phone from his pocket and made a call in rapid Korean, his voice harsh and commanding. He was giving orders, barking instructions. His whole body had transformed from controlled businessman to something far more dangerous. Within 30 minutes, the mansion was crawling with security personnel Josephine had never seen before. Men with earpieces and barely concealed weapons took positions at every entrance. The alarm system was activated. The gates were reinforced. Wu Jin found Josephine in the kitchen where she was making dinner for young Jin. His face was tight with controlled fury. From now on, young Jin doesn't leave this house without armed escort. 2 guards minimum. You don't leave this house without armed escort either. Do you understand? Mr. Kang, I need to know what's happening. I can't protect your daughter if I don't understand the threat. Wu Jin stared at her for a long moment. The muscle in his jaw twitched. His hands curled into fists at his sides. Something shifted in his expression, the tiniest crack in his armor. My ex-wife is trying to take my daughter, not through the courts, through other means. She has connections to people who specialize in making children disappear across international borders. Josephine's blood ran cold. She's trying to kidnap young Jin. She already did, 6 weeks ago. I got young Jin back, but it cost me something I can never recover. What did it cost you? Wu Jin's eyes were hollow, empty, dead. My brother. Helena's people killed my brother when he intercepted the kidnapping. She used my own child as bait to murder my family, and I walked right into it. The world tilted under Josephine's feet. Suddenly everything made sense. The locked office, the scrubbed internet presence, the men in suits, the nightmares, the guilt that haunted Wu Jin's every step. His brother was dead. Helena had killed him, and young Jin had watched it happen. I'm sorry, Josephine whispered. The words felt pathetically inadequate. Sorry doesn't bring Minjun back. Wu Jin turned toward the door. Keep my daughter safe, Miss Carter. That's all I ask. Keep her safe. He walked away, leaving Josephine alone in the kitchen with the weight of the truth crushing down on her shoulders. Josephine could not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Helena's cold smile. She heard Wu Jin's hollow voice saying his brother's name like a prayer for the dead. At 1 a.m, she gave up trying to rest. She wrapped herself in a robe and padded downstairs to make tea. Maybe chamomile would quiet her racing thoughts. She found Wu Jin in the study instead. The door was open for once, soft light spilling into the dark hallway. Josephine hesitated at the threshold. She should go back upstairs. This wasn't her business. She was the help, after all. But Wu Jin looked up and saw her before she could retreat. Miss Carter. I'm sorry, I couldn't sleep. I was just going to the kitchen. Neither could I. He looked down at the glass of whiskey in his hand. It was nearly empty. You can come in if you want. It was the closest thing to an invitation she had ever received from him. Josephine stepped into the study. The room was smaller than she expected, lined with bookshelves and filled with comfortable leather furniture. Photographs covered one wall. Wu Jin with an older couple who must be his parents. Wu Jin with a younger man who had his same sharp features but a warmer smile. Wu Jin holding a newborn young Jin in the hospital, his face full of wonder. The younger man appeared in almost every photograph, laughing, joking, making rabbit ears behind Wu Jin's head. That's Minjun, Wu Jin said quietly. My little brother. He was 3 years younger than me. He was better than me in every way that mattered. Josephine sat down in the chair across from him. Tell me about him. Wu Jin was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he took a long drink of whiskey and began to speak. Minjun was supposed to be the legitimate face of our family. I handled the dirty business, the things that had to be done in the shadows. Minjun was supposed to build our legal enterprises, tech investments, real estate, the clean money that would eventually replace the dirty money. He paused, staring at the photographs on the wall. Our family has been in this business for 3 generations. My grandfather started it in Seoul after the war. My father expanded it to America. I inherited it when I was 22 years old after my father had a heart attack. I didn't want it, but there was no one else. What business exactly? Wu Jin met her eyes. There was no point in lying anymore. Weapons, money laundering through legitimate companies, political influence in certain circles, nothing that hurts innocent people directly. That's what I tell myself so I can sleep at night. Josephine absorbed this information. She should be running for the door. She should be calling the police. She should be terrified. Instead, she asked, "How did you meet Helena?" Woo Jin's expression darkened. At a charity event in Beverly Hills 6 years ago, she was beautiful, charming, intelligent. She seemed to understand my world without being afraid of it. I thought I had found someone who could stand beside me. But Helena was a plant. She was working for a rival organization, a Russian syndicate that wanted to absorb my territory. Her mission was to marry into my family, gather intelligence, and eventually facilitate a hostile takeover. Josephine's stomach twisted. She was a spy. For 4 years, 4 years of sharing my bed, raising my daughter, learning every secret of my operation. I loved her. I trusted her completely. I was a fool. How did you find out? One of my people intercepted communications between Helena and her handlers, detailed reports about my security, my alliances, my weaknesses. Woo Jin's voice was bitter. I confronted her. She didn't even deny it. She laughed at me, called me naive for ever believing she could love someone like me. What happened then? I filed for divorce. I had enough evidence of her espionage to win full custody of young Jin. Helena didn't fight it in court. She just smiled and said she would see me soon. He poured himself another drink. 6 weeks ago, she made good on that promise. Her people grabbed young Jin from a park in San Jose. Broad daylight, witnesses everywhere. My security was overwhelmed in seconds. But young Jin is here. You got her back. Because of Min Jun. Woo Jin's voice cracked. He tracked them to a warehouse in Oakland. He went in alone while I gathered my men. He found young Jin and got her out through a back exit, but he took 2 bullets doing it. Tears began to slip down Woo Jin's face. He didn't try to hide them. By the time I arrived, Min Jun was lying in the parking lot with my daughter in his arms. He was still smiling. He was dying and he was smiling because young Jin was safe. Woo Jin set down his glass. His hands were shaking. I held him while he bled out. I told him help was coming. I told him he would be fine. He knew I was lying. He just kept saying, "Take care of her, Hyung. Take care of our girl." Woo Jin. He was 29 years old. He was supposed to get married next year. He was supposed to have children and grow old and take over the company when I retired. He's dead because my ex-wife used my daughter as bait, and I was too stupid to see it coming. The room fell silent, except for Woo Jin's ragged breathing. Josephine understood everything now. The distance Woo Jin kept from young Jin, the guilt that consumed him. Every time he looked at his daughter, he saw his brother's sacrifice. Every time he held her, he remembered holding Min Jun as he died. He was punishing himself by withdrawing from the child he loved, and young Jin was paying the price. "It's not your fault," Josephine said quietly. "Helena deceived you. She's the one who made these choices. She's the one who killed your brother. I brought her into our lives. I married her. I gave her access to everything. Min Jun is dead because I was weak enough to fall in love with the wrong woman." Josephine leaned forward. Something had been building in her chest for weeks, something that demanded to be said. "I know what it's like to be destroyed by someone you trusted." Woo Jin looked up. 2 years ago, I was engaged to a man named Derek. I thought he was my future. We were going to get married after I finished nursing school. We were going to buy a house and have children and live happily ever after. Her voice was steady, but her heart was pounding. Then I discovered he had been stealing from me. He had access to my bank account. He drained my savings. He maxed out credit cards in my name. He was a gambling addict, and I was his personal ATM. What happened to him? He disappeared. Took every penny and vanished. Left me with $62,000 in debt and no way to finish school. I lost my apartment. I lost my future. I ended up here because I had nowhere else to go. Woo Jin studied her with new eyes. You understand. I understand that trust can be weaponized. I understand that love can be a lie. I understand that being betrayed by someone you loved doesn't make you stupid or weak. It makes you human. She stood up and moved closer to him. But here's what I also understand. Hiding from your daughter isn't protecting her. It's punishing yourself. And young Jin is the one who pays the price. She needs her father. She needs you present and engaged and fighting for her. Not drowning in guilt in a locked office while she eats crackers for breakfast because you forgot to go shopping. Woojin flinched like she had slapped him. Miss Carter. Josephine, my name is Josephine, and I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying this because that little girl upstairs told me I needed to fix you. She's 5 years old and she's trying to save her own father because he's too broken to save himself. The words hung in the air between them. Woojin stared at her for a long moment. No one had spoken to him like this in years. No one had dared. You're very direct, he finally said. Life's too short for anything else. Something shifted in Woojin's expression. The faintest crack in his armor, the smallest flicker of life in his dead eyes. Min-jun would have liked you. He always said I needed someone who would tell me the truth instead of what I wanted to hear. Josephine smiled slightly. Then I would have liked Min-jun too. Something changed after that night in the study. Woojin started coming home earlier. He would appear in the kitchen around 6 o'clock, still in his suit, still carrying the weight of his business on his shoulders. But he was there. The first time he sat down at the dining table for dinner, Young-jin dropped her fork. The clatter echoed in the silent room. She stared at her father with wide eyes, not daring to believe what she was seeing. Daddy, are you eating with us? If that's all right with you. Young-jin's face broke into the most beautiful smile Josephine had ever seen. She scrambled out of her chair and threw herself into her father's arms. I missed you, Daddy. I missed you so much. Woojin held his daughter tight. His eyes met Josephine's over Young-jin's head. There was gratitude there, and something else that made Josephine's heart skip. The dinners became a nightly ritual. Josephine cooked while Woojin helped Young-jin with her homework. Their conversations were awkward at first. Woojin had forgotten how to talk to a 5-year-old. He spoke to her like she was a business associate, using big words and complicated sentences. But Young-jin was patient. She corrected him gently. She taught him how to have tea parties with her stuffed animals. She forced him to watch Disney movies on the enormous television in the living room. During Encanto, Young-jin fell asleep on her father's chest. Josephine watched from the doorway as Woojin stroked his daughter's hair, tears sliding silently down his cheeks. She had to leave the room so they wouldn't see her cry too. The weeks passed, and the mansion began to feel less like a museum and more like a home. Young-jin's laughter echoed through the halls. Her artwork appeared on the refrigerator. Her toys migrated from her bedroom to the living room to the garden. She was finally acting like a 5-year-old instead of a tiny adult. Woojin noticed everything. He noticed when Josephine was tired from staying up with Young-jin during a nightmare. He would tell her to rest and handle the morning routine himself. He noticed when she was stressed about her mother's health. Her mother, Denise, had mentioned some concerning test results during their last phone call. Woojin quietly arranged for a private consultation with one of the best doctors in Atlanta. He noticed when she mentioned missing her mother's cooking, especially the peach cobbler she made every Sunday. The next evening, a fresh peach cobbler from a famous Atlanta bakery arrived by overnight delivery. Mr. Kang, you can't keep doing things like this. Woojin, and I can do whatever I want. It's not appropriate. I'm your employee. He looked at her with those dark eyes that no longer seemed quite so empty. Is that what you think you are, an employee? Josephine didn't have an answer for that. The feelings grew, despite her best efforts to stop them. She told herself it was ridiculous. He was a Korean mafia boss with a dead brother and a psychotic ex-wife. She was a broke former nursing student with $62,000 in debt. They were from different worlds, different universes, different galaxies. But when he laughed at her jokes, when his whole face transformed from cold to warm, she forgot all the reasons why this was impossible. When he asked her opinion on business decisions, genuinely wanting to know what she thought, she felt seen in a way she never had before. When his hand brushed hers while passing a plate at dinner, she felt electricity shoot up her arm and settle somewhere in her chest. This was dangerous. This was stupid. This was going to end in disaster. She couldn't seem to stop it anyway. Woo Jin arranged for her to visit her mother in Atlanta. Young Jin had no lessons the following weekend. There was no excuse not to go. Josephine protested. The first-class ticket alone cost thousands of dollars. Consider it a bonus, Woo Jin said. You've done excellent work. It's too much. Nothing is too much for the woman who is putting my family back together. She had no response to that. Denise Carter saw right through her daughter within the first hour of her arrival. They were sitting in Denise's small kitchen, the one Josephine had grown up in, drinking sweet tea and pretending everything was normal. Baby girl, you're in love with your employer. Josephine choked on her tea. Mama, that's ridiculous. Is it? You've mentioned him 47 times since you walked through that door. I've been counting. I have not. 47 times, Josephine Marie Carter. Would you like me to list them? Josephine covered her face with her hands. It's complicated. Love usually is. He's not regular people, Mama. He's wealthy beyond imagination. He has security teams and business empires and ex-wives who try to kidnap his child. He's in a whole different world. Denise took her daughter's hands in her own. Her skin was soft and worn from decades of hard work and unconditional love. The only world that matters is the one where people love each other for real. Does he treat you well? Yes. Does he respect you? Yes. Does he see you? Really see you, not just what you can do for him? Josephine thought about the way Woo Jin's eyes followed her when he thought she wasn't looking. The way he remembered every detail she mentioned. The way he made her feel like the most important person in the room, even when she was technically the help. Yes. Then everything else is just details. Denise squeezed her hands. Life is short, baby. Too short to let fear make your decisions. If you love this man, tell him. If he loves you back, fight for it. The money and the power and the complications will work themselves out. Love is what matters. When Josephine returned to Atherton, young Jin was waiting on the front steps. The little girl ran into her arms with such force that Josephine nearly toppled backward. You came back. Daddy said you would come back, but I was scared. I thought maybe you found somewhere better. There's nowhere better than here, Ginny. I promise. Woo Jin stood in the doorway, watching them with an expression that made Josephine's heart stutter. Welcome home, he said quietly. Home, he called it home. And standing there with young Jin in her arms and Woo Jin's eyes warm on her face, Josephine realized something terrifying. It was home. This place with all its complications and dangers and impossible circumstances had become her home. She was in trouble, deep, inescapable trouble. And she didn't want to be rescued. 3 weeks of peace. 3 weeks of dinners and Disney movies and laughter echoing through the mansion. 3 weeks of Josephine falling deeper and deeper into something she couldn't name. It shattered on a sunny Thursday afternoon. The Children's Museum in San Francisco had been Young Jin's choice. She had been begging to go for weeks, and Woo Jin had finally agreed as long as the security team accompanied them. 2 guards followed Josephine and Young Jin through the exhibits. They kept their distance, trying not to be obvious, but their presence was constant, watching, protecting. Young Jin was happier than Josephine had ever seen her. She bounced from exhibit to exhibit, dragging Josephine by the hand, explaining everything with the confidence of a tiny professor. This is the bubble room. You can make bubbles as big as your whole body. This is the shadow room. Watch, I can make my shadow dance. This is the science room. They have a real volcano that erupts. It was the most normal outing Josephine had experienced since starting this job. For a few hours, she forgot about Helena, forgot about the danger, forgot that they were all living under siege. Then the fire alarm went off. The shrieking sound filled the museum. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. Parents grabbed children and rushed toward the exits. Staff members shouted directions over the chaos. In the confusion, Josephine lost sight of one of the security guards. She grabbed Young Jin's hand and pushed through the crowd. The second guard was right behind them, one hand on his concealed weapon. "This way, ma'am. Back exit is clearer." They moved through a side hallway away from the main crush of people. The alarm continued to scream. Youngjin's grip on Josephine's hand was crushing. Then the security guard dropped. One moment he was walking beside them. The next he was on the ground, his body convulsing from the taser that had hit him from behind. Josephine spun around. 3 men in black blocked the hallway. They were big, they were armed, and they were moving toward her with terrifying purpose. "Hello again," I hired help. Helena stepped out from behind them. She was wearing all black, her red hair pulled back, her green eyes glittering with triumph. "You didn't think I'd give up that easily, did you? My daughter belongs with me, and nothing, not security guards, not court orders, certainly not the maid, is going to stop me from taking her." Youngjin pressed herself against Josephine's legs. She was trembling, but she didn't cry. She didn't scream. This child had been through this before. She knew what was coming. Something ignited in Josephine's chest. Something primal and protective and absolutely furious. "You're not touching her." Helena laughed. The sound echoed in the empty hallway. "How adorable. You think you matter here. You're nobody. You're the help. You clean floors and cook meals and pretend to be part of a family that will never accept you. Step aside or my men will move you aside. Your choice. I'm the maid who's standing between you and this child, and I promise you I will not move." Helena's smile faded. Her eyes turned cold and hard. "Fine, have it your way." She signaled to her men. Josephine was not a fighter. She had never been in a real fight in her life, but desperation created its own kind of strength. She spotted a fire extinguisher on the wall. She grabbed it and swung with everything she had. The first man went down clutching his head. "Run!" Josephine shoved Youngjin toward a display case. "Hide and don't come out no matter what." The second man grabbed her from behind. His arms locked around her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. Josephine thrashed and kicked, but he was too strong. She did the only thing she could think of. She bit down on his arm, hard. Her teeth sank through fabric and into flesh. She tasted blood. He screamed and released her. The third man was bigger than the other 2 combined. He caught Josephine before she could run and locked his arm around her throat. Josephine couldn't breathe. Her vision started to blur at the edges. Black spots danced in front of her eyes. "Just knock her out," Helena said impatiently. "We're wasting time." This was it. She was going to pass out and they were going to take Youngjin, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Then gunshots exploded through the hallway. The arm around her throat disappeared. Josephine dropped to her knees, gasping for air. The world spun around her in a blur of shouting and running footsteps. Woojin's backup team had arrived. More shots, shouting in Korean, the sound of bodies hitting the floor. Through her blurred vision, Josephine saw Helena running toward a back exit. One of Woojin's men pursued her, but she disappeared through the door before he could catch her. "Josie, Josie." Youngjin crawled out from behind the display case and threw herself at Josephine. The little girl was shaking violently, tears streaming down her face. Josephine wrapped her arms around her and held on tight. I've got you, you're safe." They stayed like that on the cold museum floor, clinging to each other, until Woojin arrived. He came running through the hallway like a man possessed. His security team parted to let him through. His face was wild with terror. Then he saw them. Josephine sitting on the floor with Youngjin in her arms, both of them shaking, both of them alive. Woojin dropped to his knees in front of them. His hands cupped Josephine's face, tilting it to check for injuries. Then he pulled both of them into his arms. "Are you hurt, either of you? Let me see." "We're okay," Josephine whispered. Her throat was bruised and her voice was hoarse, but she was okay. "We're okay." Woojin held them tighter. For the first time since she had started this job, Josephine felt the full weight of what she had become to this family. She wasn't the help anymore. She was theirs. The mansion went into total lockdown after the museum attack. Security tripled. The gates were reinforced with additional barriers. Motion sensors and cameras covered every inch of the property. Armed guards patrolled the grounds around the clock. Young Jin had nightmares every night. She refused to sleep unless Josephine was in the room. Most nights she ended up in Josephine's bed, curled against her side, finally peaceful. Woo Jin didn't leave the house. He conducted all business from his office, making calls and holding meetings via video. His people came and went at all hours. Something was building. Josephine could see it in the tension of his shoulders and the determination in his eyes. He was planning something big. 2 nights after the attack, Josephine found him in the garden. It was well past midnight. The moon was full and bright, casting silver light across the perfectly manicured lawn. Woo Jin stood alone near the rose bushes, staring at nothing. "You're going after Helena," Josephine said. It wasn't a question. He didn't turn around. "She's not going to stop. As long as she's free, young Jin will never be safe. I'll never be able to give my daughter a normal life." "What are you going to do?" Now he turned. His face was carved from stone in the moonlight. "What I should have done after she killed my brother." Josephine's heart clenched with fear. "Woo Jin, please, don't do something that can't be undone." "This is what I am, Josephine. This is the world I live in. You've seen it now. You know what's real. Violence is the only language Helena understands. I know you're a father who loves his daughter. I know you're a man who's grieving his brother. I know you're not the monster you think you are." Woo Jin stepped closer. His eyes searched her face. "How can you say that, after everything you've seen, after what almost happened at the museum?" "Because I've also seen you cry during Disney movies. I've seen you hold your daughter like she's made of glass. I've seen you try so hard to be better even when you don't believe you deserve it." Josephine moved toward him. "You're not a monster. You're a man trapped in an impossible situation trying to protect the people he loves." They were standing close now. Too close. She could see the individual lashes framing his dark eyes. She could smell his cologne mixed with something warmer underneath. "Josephine, if you have any sense, you'll leave. Take the money I owe you and disappear. Build a life somewhere far away from this madness." "And if I don't want to leave?" "Then you're a fool." "Maybe I am." She reached up and touched his face. His skin was warm under her fingers. "Maybe I'm the biggest fool in the world, but I'm a fool who's in love with you." The words hung in the night air between them. Woo Jin went completely still. His eyes widened, his breath caught. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying. I love you. I love young Jin. I love this broken, complicated, dangerous life even though it terrifies me every single day." Josephine's voice was steady even though her heart was racing. "I'm not leaving. Not now, not ever. You're stuck with me." Woo Jin grabbed her face and kissed her. It was desperate and needy and real. His lips moved against hers like he was drowning and she was air. His hands tangled in her hair. His body pressed against hers until there was no space left between them. When they finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead against hers. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," she smiled, "but you're stuck with me anyway." He laughed. It was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. "I love you too," he whispered. "I've loved you since you told me I was punishing myself instead of protecting my daughter. No one talks to me like that. No one ever has. Get used to it." He kissed her again, softer this time, full of promise and hope. "Help me end this," he said against her lips. "Help me put Helena away forever so we can have the life we deserve. Whatever you need, I'm with you." 1 week later, Helena made her final move. She filed an emergency custody motion, claiming Woo Jin was an unfit parent. She had falsified evidence showing his ties to dangerous criminal activity. She had witnesses willing to testify about neglect and abuse. She had photographs and documents, and a team of lawyers ready to tear Woo Jin's custody rights to shreds. But that was just the public battle. Behind the scenes, Helena was preparing something far worse. If the courts failed her, She had arranged for young Jin to be taken by force and transported out of the country to Russia. The rival syndicate would raise her as leverage against Woo Jin for the rest of his life. She would never stop. She would never give up. She would pursue young Jin until one of them was dead. Unless Woo Jin stopped her first. He had been planning too. For the past week, his people had been gathering evidence against Helena. Her communications with the Russian syndicate, proof of her involvement in Minjun's death, records of the kidnapping plot and the museum attack, financial transactions that traced directly to her accounts. But the most important piece of his plan was something Helena didn't know about. A mole, someone inside her organization who had been feeding information to Woo Jin for months. Someone who was tired of Helena's cruelty and wanted out. Woo Jin arranged a meeting with Helena under the guise of negotiating custody terms. Neutral ground. A private restaurant in Menlo Park with no cameras and no witnesses. Helena agreed. She was confident in her victory. Josephine stayed at the mansion with young Jin, surrounded by the full security team. She held the little girl in her lap and read stories, trying not to think about what was happening across town. "Is Daddy going to be okay?" young Jin asked. "Your daddy is the smartest, strongest man I know. He's going to be just fine." Young Jin studied her face. "You love Daddy, don't you?" "Yes, sweetheart, I do." "Good," young Jin snuggled closer. "That means you're going to be my mommy, my real mommy, the one who stays." Josephine's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not going anywhere, I promise." At the restaurant, Woo Jin played his role perfectly. He acted broken, defeated, ready to surrender. He told Helena he was tired of fighting. He told her he would give her whatever she wanted if she would just leave them in peace. Helena ate it up. She couldn't resist gloating. She monologued about her victory, about how she had played him from the beginning, about how she never loved him, never wanted him, never saw him as anything more than a means to an end. "You were always so easy to manipulate," she said, swirling her wine. "So desperate to be loved, so blind to what was right in front of you. Minjun saw it, though. He knew what I was. That's why he had to go." She smiled. "Do you want to know what he said when he died? He begged. He begged for his life like a coward. He cried for his big brother to save him. But you were too late, weren't you? Always too late." Woo Jin's face remained calm, his hands steady, his voice even. Because he knew something Helena didn't. Every word she said was being recorded, and federal agents were listening in a van outside. Woo Jin had made a deal with the FBI. In exchange for evidence against the Russian syndicate and testimony about their operations, he received immunity and protection. His criminal empire was being restructured into legitimate business operations. His past sins were being forgiven in exchange for helping take down something much bigger. And Helena was handing them everything they needed on a silver platter. "You orchestrated Minjun's death," Woo Jin said calmly. "You gave the order." "Of course I did. He was a problem. I removed him. It's what I do." She leaned forward. "And soon I'll remove you too. Once young Jin is safely in Russia, you'll have nothing left. And men with nothing left do desperate things, things that get them killed." That was enough. The restaurant doors burst open. FBI agents flooded the room, weapons drawn. Helena's face went white with shock. "Helena Kang, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, accessory to murder, and espionage. You have the right to remain silent." Helena screamed as they handcuffed her. She thrashed and fought and cursed Woo Jin with every breath. "You'll pay for this. I'll destroy you. You can't do this to me." Woo Jin stood and straightened his jacket. "Goodbye, Helena. I hope prison suits you." They dragged her away, still screaming. Woo Jin walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air. For the first time in 6 weeks, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. For the first time in 6 weeks, his brother could rest in peace. He drove home as the sun began to rise. Josephine and young Jin were waiting on the front steps. They had been there all night, refusing to go inside until they knew he was safe. Young Jin saw his car coming up the driveway and ran toward it before he even stopped. He barely got out before she launched herself into his arms. "Daddy, you're okay, you're okay." He held her so tight his arms ached. "I'm okay, baby. It's over. Mommy is gone, she can't hurt you anymore. She can't hurt any of us anymore." Youngjin buried her face in his neck and sobbed, but they were good tears, relief tears, the tears of a child who finally felt safe. Woojin looked at Josephine over his daughter's head. She was crying too, tears streaming down her beautiful face, catching the first light of dawn. "It's over," he said. She nodded, unable to speak. He held out his hand. She ran to him, and the three of them stood there in the driveway as the sun rose, holding each other, finally free. 1 year later, the Atherton mansion had transformed beyond recognition. Not physically, the rooms were the same, the marble floors still gleamed, the crystal chandeliers still sparkled, but the atmosphere had changed completely. There was laughter now, music playing in the kitchen, the smell of cooking that had nothing to do with hired chefs. Youngjin's artwork covered the refrigerator. Her toys scattered the living room. Her voice echoed through the halls as she chased Biscuit, the golden retriever puppy she had begged for and received for her 6th birthday. Josephine's mother, Denise, had become a permanent fixture in their lives. She visited from Atlanta every month, spoiling her granddaughter with Southern cooking and unlimited attention. The first time Denise called Youngjin her granddaughter, the little girl had cried for an hour. Happy tears, the happiest tears. The night Woojin proposed was quiet and private. He chose the garden, the same spot where Josephine had first confessed her love. The roses were in bloom, filling the air with sweetness. Youngjin was supposed to be asleep. She wasn't. She had hidden behind the rose bushes to watch. Woojin got down on one knee. He pulled out a ring that glittered in the moonlight. "Josephine Carter, you walked into my house as the maid. You stayed as the woman who saved my daughter. You became the love of my life. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you?" Josephine was crying too hard to answer. She just nodded and held out her hand. That's when Youngjin ruined the moment. She burst out of the rose bushes, screaming at the top of her lungs. "I knew it. I told you to marry my daddy and you did it. I told you on the first day and you did it. I'm the smartest person in this whole family." The security team came running, thinking there was an attack. They found Woojin laughing so hard he could barely stand, Josephine crying and laughing at the same time, and Youngjin doing a victory dance around the garden. The wedding was held at a vineyard in Napa Valley on a perfect autumn day. The leaves were golden and red. The air was crisp and sweet. The sun shone like it had been ordered specifically for the occasion. Josephine's mother walked her down the aisle. Denise wore a dress the color of champagne and cried from start to finish. Youngjin served as flower girl. She took her job extremely seriously, scattering petals with military precision and stopping to scold any guest whose phone made noise. Woojin waited at the altar in a black suit that made him look like he belonged in a magazine, but it was his face that made everyone's breath catch. He was crying, tears streaming openly down his cheeks. He didn't try to hide them. When Josephine reached him, he took her hands. "A year ago, I was counting down the days until I had nothing left. I was preparing to die because I thought there was nothing worth living for. Then you walked into my kitchen and laughed at my daughter's ridiculous marriage proposal, and everything changed. Woojin, you saved me. You saved Youngjin. You gave us back our family. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you." Josephine squeezed his hands. "You already are." They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Woojin promised to always let Josephine pick the movie, even when she chose romantic comedies that made him pretend to complain. He promised to never eat the last slice of pizza without asking. He promised to love her fiercely and completely for as long as he lived. Josephine promised to always tell him the truth even when it was hard. She promised to always laugh at his terrible jokes. She promised to stay with him through every storm, every challenge, every impossible situation that might come their way. Then it was Youngjin's turn. She had insisted on making her own vows. She stood between her parents, holding both their hands. I promise to share my toys sometimes. I promise to only interrupt your kissing when it's really important. I promise to love you both forever and ever, even when I'm 100 years old and you're both probably dead. Everyone laughed through their tears. 6 months after the wedding, the adoption was finalized. Josephine officially became Youngjin's mother. The paperwork was signed. The judge made it legal. But it had been true in every way that mattered since the day Youngjin had asked her to marry her daddy. When Youngjin saw the adoption certificate with Josephine's name listed as her mother, she cried so hard she couldn't breathe. You're my real mom now, forever. Forever and ever, baby girl. Nothing is ever going to change that. Even when you have more bobbies. Josephine glanced at Woo Jin, who was watching them with wet eyes. Even when we have more bobbies, you'll always be my first daughter, my brave, beautiful, brilliant first daughter. Youngjin hugged her so tight that Josephine's ribs ached. But it was the best kind of pain. That night, after Youngjin was finally asleep, Woo Jin drove to the cemetery. Minjun's grave was on a hillside overlooking the San Francisco Bay. Woo Jin had chosen the spot because his brother had loved the ocean. He had talked about buying a boat someday and sailing around the world. Now he would watch the water forever. Woo Jin sat beside the headstone and talked to his brother for the first time since the funeral. I got married, Minjun, to the maid who wouldn't back down. You would have loved her. She's stubborn and honest, and she doesn't let me get away with anything. He paused. She adopted Youngjin. Our girl has a mother now, a real mother who would die for her, just like you did. Tears slid down his face. I miss you every day. I carry you with me everywhere I go, but I'm not drowning anymore. I'm not counting down the days until I can join you. I'm living, Minjun, really living, for the first time since you left. The wind rustled through the trees. The bay sparkled in the moonlight. Helena is in prison. She's never getting out. She'll never hurt anyone in our family again. Woo Jin placed his hand on the cold headstone. You saved Youngjin. You died so she could live. And now she has everything she deserves. A father who's present. A mother who's real. A life full of laughter and love. He stood and brushed off his suit. Rest now, little brother. I've got it from here. As he walked back to his car, the wind picked up. It swirled around him gently, almost like an embrace. Woo Jin could have sworn he heard Minjun's laugh. The final scene. A Sunday afternoon in the Atherton mansion. Josephine stood in the kitchen, attempting to recreate her mother's famous peach cobbler. Biscuit, the dog, lay at her feet, hopping for scraps. The smell of cinnamon and butter filled the air. Woo Jin sat at the breakfast bar, pretending to read the newspaper while actually watching his wife with undisguised adoration. Youngjin burst into the room wearing a princess dress and a superhero cape, because apparently princesses could also fight crime. Mommy, Daddy, I need an audience for my show. It's about a princess who defeats a dragon by making it laugh. Is this a new show or the same show from yesterday? Woo Jin asked. It's a sequel, Daddy. Keep up. Josephine laughed. Give us 10 minutes, baby. The cobbler needs to go in the oven. Youngjin sighed dramatically. Fine, but you better be ready. This is my best work yet. She swept out of the room with all the dignity of a tiny queen. Woo Jin caught Josephine around the waist as she passed him. He pulled her close and pressed his forehead against hers. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For laughing when our daughter told you to marry me. For not running when you learned the truth about what I am. For staying when everything fell apart. For loving us anyway. Josephine kissed him softly. Thank you for being worth staying for. From somewhere in the house, Youngjin's voice rang out. I can see you being mushy again. The show SDARTS in 5 MINUTES, whether you're ready or not. Woo Jin and Josephine laughed together, the sound filling the kitchen with warmth. The broken man who had forgotten how to live. The maid who saw him as human when everyone else saw a monster. The little matchmaker who knew exactly what her family needed from the very first day. They had found each other in the most unexpected way, through tragedy and danger and impossible circumstances, through a child's innocent proposal and a woman's stubborn refusal to run. And now they lived in love, in peace, and in the beautiful chaos of a family rebuilt from the ashes. Young Jin was right all along. Sometimes the help becomes the heart of the home.